Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a topic that I really enjoy talking about. Christine mentioned being on a wild HR train ride, and I would say fasten your seatbelts because things are changing, as we know, faster and faster. It's going to put a huge amount of pressure on businesses to adapt. Many employees in many job roles will be doing their jobs in different ways, and they'll be looking to HR to figure out how to go through a process in order to understand and adapt to the changes that are expected to occur in their jobs and in their businesses. Here's a quote from one of our founders. By the way, I'm not one of the co-founders. I'm just an employee, the CEO of Coursera. But Andrew Ng is one of our founders, along with Daphne Koller. And back in 2016, he called AI the new electricity. And the idea, I think, is spot on, that this is a new type of technology that, to a large degree, the world's not seen before. I mean, we've had AI before, but this is a bit different because what this word prediction is doing is it's creating a resemblance to thinking, and it certainly can be used as a thought partner. I use it all the time. I would say among HR, what's going to be different about generative AI, among many things than traditional AI, as you've all had to deal with understanding and hiring people who know AI, a lot of what that was about is understanding how AI works to hire technical data scientists. What's going to be really different with generative AI, it's not so much about how AI works, it's how AI is used. A lot like a mobile phone, a lot like electricity. A lot of your jobs will be to try to figure out whose jobs are going to change because of this technology. And I think that the role that HR will play will be far more central because it will be far less dependent on technical expertise. It's going to be much more about understanding jobs, understanding people, navigating through change. Just as a little bit of a shocker, I thought I'd put this picture of Douglas Hofstadter up. He's a prominent cognitive scientist. He's written some great books. He got his PhD at Stanford. Super duper duper smart guy. In June of 2022, this is what he said about GPT. This was GPT-3 when it came out. And he's like, interesting stuff, but nowhere near the kind of capability of the human brain. So very recently, he said, I think humans are all going to be eclipsed. And then he said, and this quote, he has a way with words, AI will become incomprehensible to us as incomprehensible to us as we are to cockroaches. So we are not yet cockroaches, but we are definitely looking at a world where the capabilities of this technology are increasing at very quick rates and will change the way that we think, the way that we communicate, the way that we do our jobs. Now, we've already been in a world where things have been changing rapidly. This is a chart that I like to show that talks about the risk of automation of certain jobs. On the x-axis is risk of automation. On the y-axis is wages. The color of the bubble is the typical education level. The size of the bubble is the number of jobs in the US. You immediately notice all those big red bubbles in the lower right corner. These are people who have no formal education, making low wages, doing jobs that are typically more predictable and repeatable, and therefore more likely to be automated because of traditional AI. On the other hand, you can see these people holding college degrees, the blue bubbles, making high wages, doing jobs that historically were less predictable, have very little chance before of having their jobs be heavily impacted by AI. And what most governments and businesses are doing now, and we work all over the world with businesses, governments, and campuses, we also serve 130 million individuals around the world, is they're trying to figure out how do we create the paths to opportunity through knowledge and skills and credentials, and they're not just college degrees. I also love the point that Christine was making about alternative ways of signaling skills. You're moving to skills-based hiring and then finding alternative ways to assess whether people have those skills, to open up the aperture of who's qualified for a job. Credentials are helpful, not just degrees, but also industry micro-credentials and other alternative credentials that are arising. This year, I updated the chart to reflect a major shift that we're seeing as this new type of generative AI makes a lot of the knowledge-working jobs far more susceptible to automation because of the nature of this technology. There was an article that came out in March from University of Pennsylvania and OpenAI. It was on GPT-4. They said GPTs are GPTs. Generative pre-trained transformers, that's the name of the technology, are general purpose technologies, like electricity. And they're going to have a wide range across far more job roles than we'd seen before. They said that up to half of workers could have half of their job tasks be impacted by this technology. And notably, it was higher wage individuals who do the kinds of tasks that are more likely to be impacted by this new class of generative AI technology. Here's a report from McKinsey. This showed in 2017 which education levels held jobs where they had tasks that would be likely impacted by AI that existed in 2017. You can see basically the smallest impact among the more educated, the lower impact among those with less formal education. But when they then updated it just a few months ago to say, well, what about generative AI? You can see the exact opposite. And so to some degree now, we're all in the same boat. Whether you're in a job that is more manual in nature, or whether you're in a job where you sit behind a desk and use a computer, all of us pretty much across the line in terms of education level are going to have to adapt and rethink the way we do our jobs because of this technology. And in particular, you can see that the people who are most likely to be impacted by generative AI are people holding PhDs, master's degrees, and college degrees. It's also the case that, according to McKinsey, that women are more likely to be impacted by this. So there's a whole range of potential implications of this impact, and there's different occupations that will be most impacted by this. So again, the darker bar was their assessment of the job roles whose tasks could be automated using technology before generative AI. And you can see the top there is educators and workforce training. It was the smallest bar. They're like, oh, education, that's not going to get automated. But then when they updated this based on generative AI, they found that among all occupations that they studied, the biggest relative impact of generative AI is workforce training and education. And so they estimate 3 times the number of job tasks of educators and workforce trainers will be likely to be automated. And so it's kind of as one of my colleagues said, it's one of those situations on the plane where they say, affix your mask before helping those next to you, because L&D is going to have to figure out how to educate people differently. I'll share some thoughts on that. But you're also going to have to help almost everybody in your company figure out what their jobs are going to be and how to do those jobs differently. In particular, business and legal professionals, STEM professionals, community services, creatives, office support managers, health. I mean, there's almost nothing other than like stonemasons, slaughterhouses, job site construction workers. A lot of jobs that involve any kind of computer interaction, any dealing with language, images, video, or audio are going to be pretty substantially impacted. Now you might say, well, which occupations? And does this really matter? Let me ask right now before I go on. How many of you have a CEO who has a company-wide initiative associated with generative AI that's been announced to the whole company? Show of hands? A couple. Great. This is another report that came out looking at the expected productivity gains from generative AI. A reason why this one's not going to be a nice to have, it's going to be mission critical, is that if your CFOs have not already spoken with you about this, she will speak with you about this. The fact that these tools are expected to boost productivity in striking ways. McKinsey estimates $4.4 trillion of productivity gains by giving people the tools that allow them to be more productive. And if among those $4 trillion that they expect globally to be unlocked, $3 trillion of it is just in a few different categories. So there's customer operations, that's the big one. So you might, if you're not already, if you have customer operations, that's the group that's going to get hit first. Then software engineering on the IT side, internal, software engineering on the external side for product, R&D, marketing, sales, where there's a lot of dollars spent. So these are the functions that you should be expecting are going to have the biggest expected productivity boosts. And I would say that the CFO and the heads of these functions will probably be looking to HR to say, I've been told to cut this much out, either cut this much out of our budget or improve our output per unit of input by this much, because all these consultants are saying that there's all this productivity gain to be had. But I think it will be, from the top down, it'll be a mission critical type of issue. And when people ask, oh, how do you prove the ROI of L&D and sort of learning programs, I think they're going to be seeing it in productivity gains. That's where people, I think, will be expecting to see ROI gains. So things are moving faster, and as things move faster, companies have to become more agile. It's all being driven by technology. So here's a little chart that we put together. You might have seen something like this. This is the time that it took different technologies to reach 100 million global learners. The telephone took 90 years. Electricity took 70 years. The car took 60 years. Mobile phones took 16 years. The World Wide Web, 7 years. ChatGPT, 2 months. And a major reason is a lot of these innovations are riding on existing technology networks. It's hard to manufacture cars and ship them all over the world and build roads and things. But once everybody's got a phone and connected to the cloud and these servers run in the cloud, you can layer on these types of technologies on top of existing networks. And because they're digital, they can be delivered very quickly at very low marginal cost. So it's happening faster and faster. And as these AI applications get more powerful, they're just going to be showing up in front of us. They'll be showing up on our software. They'll be showing up in our cars. It'll be showing up on our phones. It'll be showing up everywhere. Just because we use digital systems, those systems will be electrified with generative AI. All the tools that your employees use, almost every single software tool is going to have AI built into it. And they're going to be used a different way to help increase productivity by automating and augmenting certain tasks. So it's always been the case that organizations need to be agile in order to deal with change. The reason I think this is really mission critical, kind of to walk through the logic, is change creates opportunities, but change creates threats. The C-suite knows this. Depending on how you respond to it, it can be an opportunity or a threat. And so a lot of what I think folks are going to be looking at is say, how can I use this technology to either serve customers in a better way by delivering new personalized services and or increase the productivity of my team so that we can create a more valuable company. But I think this will be central. I think the CEO is going to be talking about it. I think Wall Street's going to be talking about it. They already are. I mean, they already are. Everybody's already talking about it. And now the question is, what do they expect to see and how will they see these kinds of organizational benefits? A lot of focus generally has been on agility, but I'd say when we talk about digital transformation over the last decade, it's almost all been about technology. Moving digital, going mobile, getting into the cloud, cybersecurity, protecting your assets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this next wave is going to be a lot more about talent agility. Of course, it will be technology, but you know what? The systems are already in place. Things are already running in the cloud. The data are already being captured. I mean, the big revolution here is, again, not how the technology works. It's how the technology is used. And you're going to find employees in every single job role being able to do their jobs differently because the existing software tools that they use, which are already in the cloud, work in a different way and give them capabilities that they never had before. So I think it really will quickly fall on HR to say, how do we understand, along with your business partners, how do we understand how people should embrace these tools and how can we navigate this organizational transformation to a world of generative AI? Now, in my view, L&D's never been more important. I mean, with the economy the way it's been, we've seen a lot of teams have budget reductions, contractions, vendor consolidations, et cetera. But I think we're on the way, at the beginning of a wave where L&D is going to be recognized as central. In fact, I'll just say one of our largest clients in the world, it's a huge pharmaceutical company. I talk to their CLO every quarter, and he said, yeah, the CEO has just created a generative AI initiative globally for the company. There are 3 people leading that initiative: the CLO, the CTO, and the head of strategy. Those are the 3 positions that the CEO put in charge of this whole thing. Like, what is generative AI? How it's going to impact us? How should we use it, et cetera? They report to the C-suite once a month on this topic. And I asked him, I said, when's the last time you presented to the CEO? He said, I never presented to the CEO. Like, maybe once a year I have 10 minutes on L&D. These 3 are now presenting to the CEO and the C-suite every single month to talk about what's going to be happening with generative AI and what their strategy is going to be to deal with it. A major reason is because there's going to be a lot of jobs changing. Some jobs will be fully automated, but most jobs will just be heavily changed. And so people will need to be learning new skills for their current jobs, and a lot of people will need to be finding new jobs and being trained for new jobs. So we think about upskilling and reskilling really as, how do you learn the incremental new skills using the software to do your job better? And then for jobs that get heavily displaced, or if there's a lot more productivity, there might be fewer people hired, how do you help reposition, reskill and redeploy people into new jobs? It will also really change, AI will change the way that you do your jobs. Learning is going to be far more personalized and interactive than anything we've ever seen. It'd be like having a personalized tutor. The reason I say this, we've already launched a product, which I'll briefly mention. It's like a personalized tutor that sits on top of every one of the 5,000 Coursera courses, and it answers questions for you. I mean, it kind of reads the whole course, and it is like a personal tutor who's like, yep, it can explain different concepts. It will change the way that you guys create educational materials. And this is going to be really exciting. A lot of it might be creating stuff from scratch, but the bigger thing is customization and tailoring of things. And I'll describe briefly a product that we are pilot testing right now. But the ability to take and tailor training programs far more effectively than anything that you've ever seen before. It's upon us now. I mean, we're running this pilot, we're getting feedback from our customers. There's a huge amount of excitement. And then the final one is language translation. So I've been going all around the world. We've translated now 2,000 courses into 7 different languages. We're about to move to 4,000 courses in 14 different languages. For all of you who have global workforces, I think there's going to be, personally, a centralization of L&D, because generative AI is going to require a top-down and a bottom-up strategy. And the value of having a global, standardized set of training materials, because they can automatically be translated into every language that your employees speak, it's going to really change the way that HR functions, and especially learning and development, can serve a world of global employees. A lot of the reason for federated regional L&D programs has been language and other sort of context specific to the region. But I think this is one where a lot more people are going to want to have more standardized and systematic training programs that can be translated into different languages. So right now, we are working on what we call the Generative AI Academy. So this is for workforce transformation. It's like a generative AI for leaders, generative AI for L&D, generative AI for managers, and then generative AI for different job roles. So if you're a digital marketer, here's what you need to know. If you're an IT help desk, here's what you need to know. If you're a software developer, here's what you need to know. It'll be very role specific, and it'll be changing very quickly. But that's what we're calling Generative AI Academy. We've already launched something called Career Academy. So this is not so much to upskill someone in their current job. This is if someone's job is displaced, how do you train them for a new job? These are industry micro-credentials that come from some of the top companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, CVS, et cetera, really trying to help prepare people who maybe need to switch jobs to get a new one. We also talked a little bit about D&I earlier this morning, the idea that you can hire people who don't have college degrees and run them through training programs to make sure there's a more equitable access to the knowledge and the skills, as well as the credentials. These Career Academy professional certificates have been a huge, huge boost for our company and for our customers to create alternative pathways to tap into talent around the world and to train that talent to be on a level playing field when they get to the company. In terms of the personalized learning, we have something called Coach. This is that personalized tutor. We launched this about 90 days ago. It's like ChatGPT built into Coursera. So if you don't understand a certain concept or term, you can ask, and it doesn't go out to the internet. It goes right to the course that you're in, and it gets the answer from within the course. So it's grounded in expert content. On creating custom content, we have something called Course Builder. So this is what we're pilot testing right now with about 30 customers. You can basically take and say in natural language, I would like a course about this topic that has these learning objectives for this target audience. It will then go through the 250,000 video clips on Coursera from the universities and industry partners. It'll put together a custom first draft that you can then edit, knock things out, add in private content from your own experts, and basically assemble a course using, for the most part, pre-existing components. Components that are on Coursera that are from public experts, and components from inside your company from private experts. And of course, those courses are only viewable by the employees in your companies that you want to have access to those courses. But to some degree, L&D used to be almost all, we build everything ourselves, and then it shifted to almost all, we're gonna outsource almost everything. I think what we're leading to here is a hybrid world where the courses are gonna be fundamentally built from building blocks that already exist, curated by folks in this room, supplemented by experts in your company, where they don't have to build a 10-hour course. They do like a 30-second intro video, and they contextualize how this principle is related to your company. And from what I've seen, it's been really amazing. One of our customers even said, I want to create a reference program to train my product managers on Agile product management. I want that to be the template, but then I want different managers to be able to customize different pieces of it. So I'll put together the reference course and then I'll let my managers, given where they are in their functions or the kind of products that they're responsible for, they'll just customize off of my reference template. So really cool stuff that will be possible in terms of creating new content and curating content. And then I already talked a little bit about machine translation, which I think is going to be just far more global access to high quality content and credentials than we've ever seen before. This I like to show. This is not yet built into Coursera, but just to give you some sense, this is a video that I'm heading out to Saudi Aramco next week or something. And here's a little video that just talks about the power of some of this technology to create language accessibility. Oh, it loaded just a few minutes ago. Let's try this again. Well, you know what? We might not be able to see the video. Do you have any sense for why that's not playing? All right, well, let's move on. That's too bad. Anyway, it was me in video giving an address to Saudi Aramco employees, and then I start speaking Arabic, and then I start speaking Portuguese, Thai, Indonesian, French, and German. They cloned my voice. They made my face look like I'm speaking the languages. There's a big disclosure that says it's from AI, but really language barriers are going to be dropping across the board. So then there's a question of like, well, how do you get people to actually go through these training programs? How do you upskill people? And how do you reskill people? People are busy, hard to get people to finish these things. A lot of it is about structure. People get paralyzed when they have too many choices. I think another thing that happened about 6-ish years ago, a lot of people talked about culture of learning. Wonderful. But just saying, here's 10,000 courses, go learn something, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, it's nice to have as an extra option, but you're not going to be intentionally building the skills that you need built if you simply give people a lot of stuff and hope that they go find what's right for them. I think that should be available, but not the only thing. And maybe to think about this, we could take a phrase that comes from Teach for America, where people say in Teach for America, don't expect a child to learn until they say two things. I want to, and I can. So really thinking about why would your employees want to learn this stuff? What's in it for them? And then thinking about the obstacles, the support that they need to make sure that they can learn. I think those are the two key pieces. So we often think about the curriculum, the content as a big part of that, language accessibility, the learning experience. Is it mobile? Is it offline? Can you do it in small chunks? Can you do it in the flow of work? Making sure that there's an assessment of the skills and knowledge and competencies that are being developed as you go through it, and then tying it to say, yes, you're going to get a credential. It's going to help you with your career here at my company, and even if you want to put it on LinkedIn, learning at my company will help you build up your career over your lifetime. But I think that credential and the idea that it's going to be good for you if you go through these training programs is really a benefit, really helps to create something for the individual employees to be able to say, yeah, I want to do this. And so what we do at Coursera, for what it's worth, and we'll send all these slides out, we have what we call academies. These are structured programs. They start with clear objectives. Who needs which skills? They then involve content and credentials. Well, what content and credentials are needed to develop those skills? What is the learning experience? Is it live? Is it async? Is it mobile? Is it in cohorts, or is it self-paced? Is it hybrid? And then really thinking about the outcomes, which is kind of what's in it for the company in terms of ROI and what's in it for the employee, mostly in terms of career advancement. So just to leave you with a final thought, as we think about some of the key exciting things that we're seeing, it's really expert content from outside combined with expert content from inside. This idea that you have structured programs to really help the right people get the right skills. The idea that you don't just learn the theories, you apply them in hands-on practice. The world of personalized interactive learning, and then as Christine already talked about this morning, the move towards skills-based hiring, more equitable opportunities for employment that start with more equitable opportunities for educational advancement as well. So thank you very much, I appreciate it, and have a good rest of the conference.